Hi everyone, and welcome back to SwitchUp and to another of our 12 days of SwitchUp.
Exactly right, yeah. So today we're going to look at some of our favourite co-op games. Now, we've done plenty of co-op games over the years, and we've tried to keep this one as new and fresh as we can and not replicate games from the past. There are a few on here that just have to be, they're our favourites. But other than that, it's a whole bunch of new games for you to play with someone else.
Lovely. Remember, you can save 10% on any of your Switch games, so if you're buying any new ones, any from this list, you can use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to save a bit of bunts.
There we go, nice stuff. So which games have we picked? Well, let's find out. Right, the first one we're going to talk about then is Death Road to Canada. Now, we played this through a few weeks back on a Friday night, and it was a huge amount of fun. You basically go on runs, you're trying to escape from somewhere in the US to Canada, as there is a zombie apocalypse has dawned on the world, and you'll be picking up other characters that will join your party. You have to stop off and try to find supplies, and you're under constant threat of death, aren't you?
Yeah, this one was probably a little bit harder than I expected it to be. This is one where, when you're playing in co-op, if one of you dies, then the other one can be left on their own. And we experienced that, didn't we?
Yeah, but you can, as I said, if you do pick up someone else along the way, they can then become player 2 again, so it's not complete, end of the fun in terms of playing with someone else. It also has a little bit of an Oregon Trail feel to it, because those sections in between runs where you're in the car and you're driving along, and there's kind of random events that can happen. People can get hurt or get killed in some instances. But this was, a huge amount of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, top tip for this one would be do not leave your car behind.
Yeah, we did that. We actually ran off and left the car. I don't know how we managed it, but yeah, don't do that.
It's awesome to be sponsored by Phoenotopia Awakening, which I gave 92% in our review. This one's currently 50% off, and this matches the cheapest it's ever been on sale. It's an easy recommendation. It's a beautiful handcrafted adventure featuring Gale, who begins as a simple villager, but her life gets turned upside down. There are nods here to classics like Zelda 2, and you'll find 10 different weapons, as well as loads of different tools that you can use. One of my favourite things is the incredible soundtrack. It features over 60 original songs, and it's one of those games that you can go from place to place, and you'll always find some secret or item or even an area that you didn't know existed. On my first run, it took around 30 hours, but for completionists, you're easily looking at around 50. The whole thing comes in a neat little package of just 978 megabytes, and it's been worked on and patched since launch, and also features a full achievement system. Check out our full review, I'll pop a link to it in the description, but don't miss this one on its half price sale. Thanks again to those guys for sponsoring this episode.
Okay, our next pick is a game called Xenocrisis. This is a top-down twin-stick shooter in the vein of something like Smash TV from the past. Great game that was. And in this case, you play as two Marines. It very much has like it's a very retro feel. It references things like Aliens, Resident Evil. One of the characters looks very much like Jill Valentine. And you'll go from room to room, obviously killing the enemies. There's survivors you need to find, or hostages, and you're picking up new crates of ammo, and then you're taking on a boss at the end. Really difficult, isn't it? Really hard game.
Yeah, so I've only played a little bit of this one, but I actually played the game that you referenced, Super Smash TV.
Yeah.
That was in the arcades, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, and so I've played a bit of that, so I kind of have an idea of how this plays out. Random question.
Yep.
Do you think there's a place for new arcades in 2022, 2023?
I think in terms of quality of games and what you could put in there, experiences you could have, yes.
Yeah.
In terms of what people want these days, I don't know if it's... Within a certain amount of people, they'd love it. Me, me included, I'm sure you. Yeah, exactly right. But I just don't think they do well enough to be sustainable,
SwitchUp Arcade.
Yeah, SwitchUp Arcade.
It's got a ring to it.
Yeah, it could happen.
But yeah, Xenocrisis. So this is co-op 2-player or up to 4 or?
It's 2-player, I believe. What makes this one slightly different is that you can run out of ammo and will run out of ammo frequently, and you need to wait for an ammo box to then respawn or spawn in each room.
Right, I'm remembering it now.
Yeah, you can't just go crazy and shoot all your bullets off, because you will run out often, and then you're kind of stuck waiting, and it really does add, if not a layer of strategy, a layer of caution to the game,
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. I wasn't very good at the time, but
it's a tough game.
It is good fun. Nice one. Next up then, we've got a game called Hunt Down, which has had a couple of mentions recently actually on the channel, just on sales videos and other bits and bobs. But this is a brilliant 2-player co-op side-scrolling action game But it does remind me, it's got like elements of the Warriors in it. Warriors.
Yeah. In terms of its premise or its style, I can
Yes.
see where you're coming from with Warriors, but with like a cyberpunk
Yeah.
aesthetic
yeah.
as opposed to obviously that which came out in the 70s. But yeah, so it's a run and gun. What I would say is it's not kind of like balls to the wall Contra,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's easy by any stretch.
No.
And you know, you make your way across these levels, and then there's a boss because you have to take down. You're basically bounty hunters, aren't you? Taking down each of the your contracts.
Yep.
Well, I found levels slightly easy and then bosses stupidly hard.
Yes.
I do wish there was a touch more balance to it overall, but at the end of the day, it was still a huge amount of fun, and we finished this one off. I think it took about 6-8 hours in total to finish.
Yeah. This one, it's balls off the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
It's balls behind cover most of the time.
Yes, yeah, you can cover as well. It does have a cover mechanic, which is kind of what I meant. Whereas in Contra, you just go. Do you know what I mean? We're here, you're stopping and waiting and shooting. But yeah, really worth playing this one.
Yeah, very nice. Bit of arcadey as well. You know, you're finding those hidden suitcases, and there's always that one guy that just goes sprinting off, and you're all chasing him down, trying to like end him. But really good, really enjoyable, and it does have a different mode once you finish the game, a more hard difficulty mode essentially to go back to. And we need to try that because it was tough anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a hard game. The last boss was disgraceful, to be fair, wasn't he?
Next up then, we've got Resident Evil 5, and yeah, I know there are lots of Resident Evil games. There are probably better co-op Resident Evil games on the Switch. You've got,
Yeah, you've got Revelations 2, for example, which has a fantastic raid mode.
That's awesome.
Which is, you know, in terms of co-op, pure co-op would be right up there. The reason we picked this one is because we both prefer the story-driven experience when playing in co-op, not just a kind of one and done and you start again. So that's why we've gone for 5. We've been playing through this. We're getting towards the end now, aren't we? We've both played it through, obviously, in the past, in co-op as well, actually. And as much as it does feel slightly clunky these days. You soon get back into it, don't you? And it's just, I think, I mean, this is one of my favourite Resi games.
Yeah, it's like you say, there's a learning curve where you're thinking, oh my goodness, how did I ever play this? And then you get back into it. But it does have things like gyro for aiming. Glenn found that he was particularly good at shooting heads off, which was upsetting for me. And the co-op element is actually used to good effect. You know, there are some enemies where you want to make them follow you, and then your mate shoots them in the back and things like that. But there are some disgraceful boss fights in there.
Yeah, really tough ones. But I mean, back in the day, the biggest criticism of 5, if it wasn't the fact it was more action based, once you got past all that, I mean, just in terms of gameplay, was the AI of your partner was not great. No. So obviously, if you're playing in co-op with someone competent, it's all good.
Yeah, the AI is super generous. Glenn left the other day, and then it like handed me all its supplies. I was like, okay,
yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. Right, we're going to do an obvious one now if you've been following the channel for any length of time, and that's Monster Hunter Rise. As we said, we're trying to keep this list as different to other lists that we've done in the past on the same subject as possible, but this one just has to be mentioned, doesn't it?
Yeah, we'll call this Sunbreak, just to disclaim ourselves.
Yeah, exactly right.
Which is the massive DLC, new content and things like that. But yeah, this is it's one that you've got to dedicate time to, really, in co-op. We haven't played this a great deal over this last year, which upsets me a little bit. We'll have to play a bit more. But it remains one of the best, if not the best, co-op experience on the Switch. Obviously, you can play with up to 4 of you online. You're hunting different creatures. I do think it's one that you ideally want someone that knows what they're doing to make it better when you first start. You know, I wouldn't like to go and play this without... You know, when we first started, you showed me how to play the game, essentially.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference to how fun it was. If I didn't have that, there's a chance I just would give up and be like, nah.
Yeah, well, the first one I played was Try on the Wii, and that was the way I experienced it, whereas you're dropped in, you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the people online, by the way, are very helpful.
Yeah.
But sometimes the mission's over before you've even got to the monster, you know, and you're like, well, what happened there? What did I, you know... So having someone that knows what they're doing, or you can kind of learn together, is definitely
the way.
It really does make it a better experience. What I will say about this one, or the more recent ones, is that you can now kind of drop in to a mission, whereas before, if you missed the boat, so to speak, you had to wait your turn. It's much better. You can now just drop in at any time, which really does help. You know, it just streamlines things, doesn't it?
Yeah. So with Monster Hunter, you could say that you should try before you buy.
You've been thinking about that the whole time, haven't you? You haven't listened to a bloody word I said. Just had that.
You can see the glisten in my eye.
Yeah. Oh dear.
We recently had the delicious last course of Cuphead, which included Miss Chalice, a brand new playable character with some different moves and things. She was a bit easier than the previous two characters, Cuphead and Mugman, but as far as core co-op gameplay goes, it remains just as good as it ever was.
Yeah, I mean, this is... I'm not as much into difficult games as you. You know, I have a threshold that is very easily passed and then the world ends in terms of that play session. But this is one game I can persevere with in terms of its difficulty, because it's just so much fun. You know, you have that bar. Obviously, it's basically like a huge boss rush, isn't it? Yeah. And you have that bar that tells you how far you got towards defeating the boss. And, you know, the amount of times you'll be so close and you'll be like, right, come on, let's try again. Yeah, this is a great game, and this is getting a physical soon. It's been a long time in the works, but it is on the way. It may even be out by the time this goes out. It was slated for December, so
brilliant.
Yeah, one to look out for.
Yeah, in terms of that difficulty level, I think the only boss that we thought that was as bad was in Tiny Barbarian. Do you remember the final boss?
Yeah, man, that took hours.
Oh, it literally didn't it? Yeah. I mean, I seem to remember we were there for about 6 hours.
Yeah, just on that one boss.
Yeah. So Cuphead, brilliant co-op. Brilliant difficulty, but obviously you have to overcome and you will get frustrated. There's a little alternative pick there really with Tiny Barbarian. It's one we've mentioned before.
Great game. Yeah, well worth picking up. Right, next one is one that some people may not know about. It's published by Devolver Digital, but it's not actually on the eShop. No. It was a physical only release, and it's a game called Demon Throttle. It's a throwback to kind of classic top-down shooters, things like Ikari Warriors from back in the day. Mark's shrugging his shoulders at me. But you play, it's obviously two-player co-op. You've got two different characters. One is a cowboy who's got a much better shooting rate,
right?
Whereas the other one is...
You're going to say hat.
No, well, he does actually. Yeah, his hat is pretty damn sweet. But the other one is a vampire, and she has a better special weapon.
Right.
So it's a nice mix between the two, you know. And you make your way through the levels, of course. There's only 4 levels, but it's one of those game over and you start again, and you only have 1 life. Yeah. 1 life per character. So it's stupidly hard. It is proper NES style. You know, made the game longer by making it more difficult. But as I just said with Cuphead, this is another one where I can just keep playing. You know, I just enjoy it that much that I don't care, and I can get to world 3 out of the 4. So you know, chugging away, I'm getting there. Good.
Yeah, this is one where I can see the comments for a few people where they just look at the visual and go, oh, you know, why are you going to talk about that one? But actually what these arcade style games do so well is they refine gameplay elements that are used and borrowed all over the shop into something that you can really enjoy, you know, in a short space of time and get that same experience. Like I was getting rinsed on this. I was dying constantly, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And it's funny, you can look at this and think, oh, it's just but actually it offers the same challenge in a weird way as some of those Souls games. It's brutal at times and you've really got to be on the ball.
Yeah, and it like little things like it has a jump or a roll. Yes. I can't quite remember, but whichever one of those it is, it's a jump, I believe. Just that tiny little tweak makes such a difference in how you can play the game. Yeah. You know? But yeah, tough. It's a difficult one to find, possibly, because of the way they've marketed it and released it, but it is a very fun game.
Then we have The Binding of Isaac, and I believe they released The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus or something.
It's not called that, but I know the one you mean.
Good name, though.
Yeah. that was the one that released on the Switch initially, and has since been a further update. And that's the one specifically we're going to talk about because it adds proper co-op.
Yes.
The original one of you played as Isaac, of course, or one of the other characters, and the other played as a familiar who kind of floated around and could shoot but couldn't do a huge amount else. Whereas now you can both play as a proper character. Yeah. And it improves the game tenfold in co-op, doesn't it?
It does. We say it every time. You look at this, if you'd never played it before, you'd never seen it, you look at this and go, what are you on about? What's the fuss about with that? You know, it doesn't look good. And even when we bought it, we played it and we were like, what on earth have we just... I spent 35 quid. And at the time, I was broke. I was like, what have I done here? I was really annoyed. And I think I messaged you a few days later and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't stop playing. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. It's obviously, again, you just make your way through... like dungeons basically, don't you? You know, screen by screen, trying to complete runs. It is a roguelite, of course. If you die, you start again. But you do unlock new abilities that will then appear in later runs. So there's always that incentive. I mean, for my money, this is one of the best roguelites out there. Yeah. You know, it really it does everything it does so well. And this new version with that proper co-op, if you like, is definitely one to look out for.
Isaac! Can we have the foot come down on the video?
Yeah. Right, next we've got Unravel 2. This is a platform game where you play as two little characters made out of wool, isn't it? And you need to use kind of the mechanic of being able to swing across ledges.
Yep.
You're in, you know, what to us would be normal environments like the garden or the kitchen, but obviously because you're so small, everything looks huge. But what makes this so much fun to play in co-op? Well, I mean, it is fun, don't get me wrong, but what makes it a nice co-op game as a different option maybe is the fact that you can, if you're playing with someone that's struggling at times to get across gaps or what have you, yes, one character can kind of latch on to the other, you intertwine with your wall, and then what, you know, the player that is okay and is doing well can help you across, and then you can detach and carry on. And I played this one in the past with my wife for that exact reason, that she doesn't find it stressful to have to get across all the gaps and slow the game down, you know?
Yeah, for the theme of two little weird balls of wool moving around, it's a surprisingly adult kind of atmosphere and tale that it tells. Kids can still enjoy it, but then in the background there'll be scenes playing out of things that are quite hard hitting and stuff.
That's right, yeah, it's done via, as you say, like flashbacks of what's happened as you're walking through the scene, and you can take it for what it is on you know, the surface level of, you know, it's just there, or you can really start to read into it, can't you, and get the implicit meaning. Yeah,
and you can change the colour of your head.
Yes, which is nice, I suppose. Okay, we wanted to put a beat 'em up on here, and there's so many to choose from at this point, it's ludicrous. But we've gone for TMNT, Shredder's Revenge. So this is the new Turtles game that's come out recently by, what they call Tribute Games, isn't it? By Tribute Games, published by .emu, and it kind of takes everything that was great about the old Turtles beat 'em ups, Turtles in Time specifically, refines it all, and it's also just a huge love letter to the 1980s cartoon.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm sitting here thinking, we would be good in a beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And then you're fighting against all those annoying commenters, you know, the ones that like say the silly things.
Yeah.
And then on the sidelines, you've got the ones that are all right.
What, like cheering you on?
Yeah, in the windows and stuff. And they throw you chicken. Or they wouldn't throw you chicken.
No,
they'd throw you like, what they throw you?
I don't know, some corn bites maybe.
Corn bites.
Anything like that.
That is so
nice
upsetting.
Sweet potato. You know.
What would your special move be that took a bit of your health because it was that damn good?
The conversation's gone so weird. I was going to say huge happy gaming, but that would have to be yours, wouldn't it? With your
I'm not
silly...
going to say happy.
No,
silly.
I don't mean that. I mean bellowing out.
Oh, see ya.
You know.
That would put a few people down, to be fair.
It gets me down every time you do it. But can we turn to Turtles, please?
Slice of pizza.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic beat 'em up after that ridiculous
segue.
But the reason I picked this one over, say, Cowabunga Collection is because the online on this one, the last time I played them at least, was better.
Nice.
So whereas the other one, if you're just local, that has a few games to choose from, might be better value for money. This one does have better online, and it objectively is probably a better game because it's so much, you know, it's been refined. But yeah, both great choices.
Nice one. Well, I contributed well to that. You're welcome.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers.
Okay, so next up, last but not least, we have Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, which is a third-person shooter, essentially, where you control one of the zombies or one of the plants, and it's very much an online experience predominantly.
Yeah, it's team play, isn't it? And slightly different to everything else on this list, I would say. Again, this was one that we played a huge amount of last year, most specifically. It's been out elsewhere before, obviously. It hit the Switch last year, but it's plays very well, first and foremost. The online holds up very well, and if you're on the team with a friend, then it's great fun, especially if you're in the same room at the same time. Yeah,
being able to converse in a game like this makes a huge difference. It doesn't stop the fact that sometimes you'll just end up with a rubbish team and it gets frustrating, but there are some really nice kind of shifts and changes to the format. It's not just team deathmatch and things like that. There's almost like a conquest mode that you'd have in Battlefield where you're trying to gradually take more territory and stuff. But yeah, really cool. And you actually move from island to island, don't you? So you don't stay on the same place. Do you remember you do that like springboard over to that other island?
That's right, yes. And obviously you said there's plants and zombies, but there are different types of each.
Yes.
All with their own kind of strengths and weaknesses, and everyone will find one that they're most proficient with, which it just makes it a huge amount of fun, doesn't it?
It really does. So do make sure that you check out, we'll pop links to the other co-op videos we've done in the description, because there'll be undoubtedly people sat there going, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And X, Y, and Z and A and B might be in the other videos.
It could well be, who knows. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Please do let us know of any games that you've played in co-op that you would recommend. It's always tough to pick games because there are so many, and the Switch is a good console for local co-op, isn't it?
Absolutely. As we said at the start, do make sure you save 10% on any of your eShop vouchers over at switchup.gg. If you're in the Americas or the EU, a lot of the EU regions, you can do that and you can save 10% using code SwitchUp. All that's left to say is thanks so much for watching another day of our 12 days of SwitchUp, and I'll let you sign off, Glenn.
Most kind after you've spoken about your sign off for the whole video.
Oh, shall I do it?
No, that's
okay.
fine. This is my moment.
This is my moment. What song's that?
Right, Martine.
Oh, Martin McCutcheon.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Blast from the past there.
Did.
Should we?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, all right. What are we doing? Oh, yeah. Take care, and until next time, which is tomorrow, happy gaming.